let the good times roll. Down, we'll never come down. When the sun comes up, we'll be feeling how we do right now. My heart's on fire, coming down to the wire. While the world sleeps, we'll keep burning brighter and brighter. Me and you, nothing to do. These days they come and go. Me and you, nothing to lose. I feel it in my soul. So let's let the good times.
All right, Friday. Everybody, I hope you are doing amazing. Taking some steps in your growth, letting them compound, living your anthem, letting the good times roll. It's Friday. Happy to be with everybody here today. We got a couple of questions that we've got for you and a couple of things that we had for everybody. But I hope you've had a great week, and we're going to get after it today with a couple of questions for us. The first question I've got today actually comes from a project engineer at a large industrial owner company in the U.S. Gulf Coast. They sent this question in, and it is about mentoring. So they heard me talking a couple of weeks ago about mentoring, and we talked about actually how to go ask for a mentor, and so they wanted to follow up with that. The question that they've got here, they're saying that their company has told them that they're going to have a formally assigned mentor sometime next year, and but I've already got some real questions and some real growth areas that I'd like to be talking about, talking to somebody about right now. I'm not sure I really can wait until next year to let the system catch up with me. So how do you recommend I go about finding a good mentor, or even maybe a few mentors on my own without stepping on any toes with whatever formal program that's coming down the line with my company? Excellent. I love that. I love that question. You're wanting to do the right thing with your organization, and they have some dynamics going on where they've said, hey, next year we're going to be giving you a formal mentor. This is a balancing act a lot of times. There's a lot of times that, we have to kind of think through, what the plan is happening with our company. But there's something that I've got news for you, is that the most effective mentoring relationships that I've ever had, and quite frankly, the ones that I've seen, both personally and professionally, as well as people that I coach, the best mentoring relationships are the ones that you can form yourself without even waiting for a formal mentoring program. I'm a big fan of formal mentoring programs, but a lot of times their effectiveness is really going to be driven a lot by, what is it? What's that framework that your company uses for mentoring? What do they provide to the mentor to make sure that they can be successful? What do they provide to you to make sure that you can be successful? And so today what I thought we'd do is actually give you a couple of points about mentoring that you can take even right now as you have some conversations that you want to be having and thinking about. I call it almost a mentoring portfolio, because that you won't find one mentor in your work, in your life, wherever, that's going to have all the answers that you need. It's usually going to be a group of people that you're going to want to find over the course of your life, really, that can be able to speak into you. Where are you getting your wisdom from? And there's so many different places that wisdom can come from. And so being able to think that it's not just going to come from one person, they're not just going to always have the silver bullet that you need to solve every challenge that you have along the way, is a really good perspective to have, and something that you can take forward. But I want to give you a couple of statistics that I really like to talk about when it comes to mentoring. There's a survey that I found that says that 86% of professionals say that mentoring is actually critical to their retention, but only 37% belong to a mentor-mentee relationship. Now, I'm telling you this because, I think it's important for you to, number one, kind of know that you're not alone if you're not in a mentor-mentee relationship. But also, for the company leaders that are tuning in, I want them to know too that this is one of your biggest opportunities, is the idea of mentoring. And I found out that it was very much like that for me. The times in the organization when I was coming up in the organizations that I've worked for, and when I was finally in a leadership position, some of the biggest opportunities that I had to be able to make was if we were fostering mentoring. And a lot of times it's very difficult to actually formally put in formal mentoring programs. But I'm a big fan of equipping people to be able to have a mentoring program that they run for themselves, and that's actually motivated from growth goals that you have for yourself, identified things that you want to be growing in. If you can run a mentoring program for yourself, you're much more equipped to be more successful in what you're able to get out of any mentoring relationship that the company may formally put in place later, because you have practice of making mentoring relationships work successfully. And then when one is given to you more formally, you're able to help make it be even that much more successful. So 86% of professionals say mentoring is critical to their retention. Only 37% actually belong to a mentor-mentee relationship. Both people that are out there that are wanting mentoring, this is a big opportunity for you that you can start today to make something happen. For leaders and organizations, if you're hearing that, that's one of your biggest opportunities to increase engagement as well as retention in your organization, is to think through what can you do to improve the quality of mentoring that's happening in your company. And it may not necessarily be by instilling a formal mentoring program. It may be by equipping people to actually have effective mentor-mentee relationships. But it could also be both. And that's something that you want to think about and take away. Now, the question was about finding a mentor. So here's 5 things I've got for you that you should think about when you're thinking about people to think through. Number 1 is the example that they set worthy of emulation? Do they have the experience that, they've trekked a road, they've trailblazed a path that you might want to test or try? That may seem kind of obvious, but sometimes we go and we seek mentoring sometimes from people who don't have that experience. And while they can have some great insights for you, adding people into the mix who've trailblazed paths that you want to go down is really important to be able to think through. So that's the first one. The second one is, are they available? Now, many times we always want to have a senior person, a senior executive, be the one to come and give us the mentoring that we think that we need, that we deserve, that we want. But sometimes, the people that are 1 to 3 steps ahead of us sometimes are the ones that we want to go find first in the mentoring relationship. That availability and saying that, I need to be mentored by the CEO. Well, if you ever get the opportunity to have a mentoring conversation with your CEO, it can be a really good thing. But if we walk in and we expect our company to be putting us in front of the CEO for a regular mentoring relationship, number 1, their availability is going to be very challenged. But number 2, they may not actually be the right one for you to receive mentoring from. Because sometimes they get removed from the direct challenge that you might be facing, and they can provide wisdom to you for sure. But you may be able to find some other people to help give you more directly applicable things that you can take and that you can run with. Now, most CEOs will tell you that too. It's like, hey, you may find better mentoring from people who are, closer in the journey to where you are. Now, if they use that as an excuse of why they won't have any kind of conversation with you, that's a concern too. But, if you ever get that opportunity to talk to the CEO, just realize that their perspective you want to be taking and listening and running with, but supplement it with people who are maybe only a few steps ahead of you in the organization as well. Take that knowledge that you get from any conversation you get to have with a senior executive. Always try to supplement it with those who are a few steps ahead of you on the journey. So that's number 2 about availability. The third one you want to look for are people that you can find if they have wisdom to impart. What is that knowledge that they have given to other people? Do they have a track record of pouring into others? If so, they're probably a good one to see if you can have a conversation with. The fourth one is, are they willing to actually provide the support? So if they're a worthy example, it's worthy of emulation. If they're available and they have wisdom, are they then willing to provide support? You don't want to show up on somebody's doorstep and feel like they're unwilling to provide the support to you that you feel like you'd like to have in that mentoring relationship. And then the fifth one, do they value people? Do they have that track record of being able to show that they can, they value pouring into others? Now, there are those people out there, and I talked last time about, being able to go up and ask for a coffee conversation. But hopefully those 5 things help you out a little bit. The other things that I want to share a little bit about mentoring is, just a simple routine that you can adopt in that mentor and mentee relationship. Now, I'm a big advocate of effective mentors in relationships, but as a mentee, the person who's receiving the mentoring, there's a few things that you can do to kind of help, lead that relationship. The first thing is, you should come prepared. Think through ahead. Think about 3 to 5 questions that are related to growth areas that you'd like to go down, and be ready to ask those questions. But think about those questions ahead of time. Don't just show up and give them a topic and say, hey, if you want to grow in like business or commercial awareness, don't just come up and show and say, hey, I want to grow in my commercial awareness, so I thought you might be able to impart to me your wisdom in that area. Think about some specific questions that you can have, that you can ask with the objective of that you're wanting to get them to tell you a story. Again, think about their journey, and what you're looking for is things that they have found very helpful in their journey that they can then give to you, that you can take away, and that you can go and apply a concept or a principle later. So as you have those questions, the next thing you want to do is, after you've had that meeting, go and apply the principle that you felt like you got out of that meeting. Once you apply it, then you start getting your own story of application, success or challenge. And then in the next meeting, you can then have your own story that you can tell. So story-based mentoring is really important. Being able to ask questions around the things that you're looking after to be able to grow in, go and apply them, and then bring a story back of application. When you bring that story back of application, you're honoring their time and their commitment to you to have actually shared some nuggets with you, and what have you done with them? And so when you share that story, then go to the next question or topic. Don't always feel like you got to get through the full list of questions. Actually, it's most important if you can figure out a step for you to be able to take, think through that and take it, and then bring that back. Use story-based mentoring to be able to get some of the lessons that they have, some of the lessons that you're learning, and be able to dialogue around that in the relationship. And you'll find that you'll be able to navigate your mentoring relationships much more successfully. All right, so I hope that was helpful to you about that, and hopefully you're able to take that and go apply that for yourself. The second question that we have today comes from somebody that it's performance review season. It's the end of the year, and they just had their performance review, and they wanted to send in a question about their performance review. They said, "Hey, I just had my performance review, and it was actually quite disappointing. I worked really hard all year, but I felt that my final rating didn't accurately recognize my contribution. My boss's feedback felt a little unfair, and honestly, I feel pretty discouraged after the review. How should I handle this? I don't want to wreck my motivation or my relationship with my boss." Look, this is This is a big challenging topic. Is the topic of performance reviews. I found in my career that no manager actually ran it consistently, even though the company was really good about trying to, instill in people a culture of even like regular conversation, that once the annual review time would come down, that there would be a very effective process. There's a Gallup article, though, that's out there that says that only 14% of employees strongly agree that their performance reviews inspire them to improve. So if you've ever walked out of a performance review and not been inspired to improve, you're not alone. Now, so a lot of us can come out of performance reviews kind of feeling unmotivated or demoralized, but sometimes we can even feel defensive. And we have to think through that too, because there's even studies that are out there that say that, when they get an unfair review or a poor review, it even motivates, things like looking for alternatives in our employment and all those kinds of things. But I want you to think through that, don't let a bad review lead you into retreat or resignation. It's something that you can take ownership of and begin to flip that script a little bit, and it can be a pivotal moment for you. Okay, it can be a pivotal moment for you. It can, either be that full stop at the end of a tough year, or it can be the start of an amazing next chapter of your career. And so I choose to say, hey, let's choose the comeback. So what I want you to think about is what you're going to do with this. Because a lot of times we want to, raise the flag and start talking about how unfair the performance review was, and we create a lot of noise afterwards. But I want you to start thinking forward instead of backwards. A lot of times after a poor performance appraisal, trying to negotiate and argue with the manager about whether or not the rating should have been different, there's, sometimes you can make a difference in that. But the most impactful conversation that you can have after a very challenging performance appraisal, even one that was, you felt misaligned, is to have a forward-looking mindset, focusing on what you can do next. So if you have a performance appraisal, and some of you that haven't had your performance review done, you can maybe think about this. If you go in and the outcome has been a bit of a surprise to you, think about at the end of it having a conversation that looks forward, and it says, okay, next year, what are some things that you might want to see different so that we can have a different outcome in the following performance appraisal? How do we look in that conversation to turn that discussion into a partnership opportunity with your boss? So think about it this way. Whether or not your boss has actually said this to you, their success is tied to your success. And really deep down, no good manager particularly actually wants their team to fail. And so think about that. So what we want to do, particularly in your situation, since you've exited that conversation, is, first of all, reflect and start finding the nuggets of truth that you can align with. And even the ones that you feel were tough and maybe unfair, don't just ignore them. Start asking yourself, what could have led to this feedback that I got? What, was there, even any truth in this? And you got to be brutally honest with yourself. And so what you can do there is find some of that improvement, maybe even try to validate it with a mentor and have that conversation and just say, hey, I'm getting this feedback. What are some things that I might be able to change so that I can make a difference in the next time? But once you've done that, talk to your boss about and initiate a future-focused conversation. Because if you have that conversation where you're able to start thinking about moving forward, see, you're not trying to relitigate the past, because there's all kinds of traps in that. There's just all kinds of opportunities for misunderstanding and, mess ups and just all kinds of things in that conversation. But frame it like, hey, I'd like to discuss with you about how next year I can better meet expectations. Now, if you ask that kind of question, that comes across a bit more safe and a bit more, willing to work with that person so that you can better align some targets for next year. I want to make sure I'm working on the right things that are going to help the team. Can we talk about how I might be able to improve, how I might be able to add more value? What can I do to be able to put you in a position next year to be able to recommend me for a different outcome? See, when you start looking forward, you can have that conversation that you're able to actually start talking about setting expectations that can be consistent and that can be clearly understood. Because misaligned expectations are so difficult to deal with, particularly when the time comes up when the expectation is due. And when you miss that expectation, it's a very big challenge. And so the third thing that you want to think about that in that roadmap, the first one being the reflecting to find the nuggets and being truthful about yourself, and then trying to initiate this future forward-looking conversation, is start thinking about goals and checkpoints. Now, this one's very challenging. A lot of times we like to leave this up to our manager to define. And we say, hey, what's the goal that you want to have for me? What are your expectations? Those are very tough conversations sometimes. Come forward and recommend. Recommend the checkpoint. Recommend the goal. Put the goal forward. Here's a goal that I think, from what I'm hearing you say, that I'd be willing to commit to this next year. What do you think about that? Right? Having that conversation about, you offering up the checkpoint, you offering up the goal, okay? It can be something that can be very valuable for you in your performance appraisal process. Because managers run this totally different, regardless of organization, different levels in the organization, different managers can have different views on it. But look at it this way. The performance review appraisal process, it's one of your few times that you get to write into your permanent record. And so if you think about that, you should want to be motivated then to offer up things that you have the opportunity to align on. And then when you have that ongoing feedback loop, be the one that schedules that check-in. If you've committed to the goal or the check-in, don't wait for the manager to be the one to come by and do that check-in to check up on the goal. You take the initiative and just start getting in front of them and having that regular conversation yourself. Yeah, some bosses can do a better job of getting in front of you and talking to you and having that conversation more regularly. But I always found that if I was the one that raised my hand to come and talk through, hey, how's this going? The next time I do this, would you have some nuggets for me? Would you have some insight that you could give me? Having that ongoing feedback loop and looking forward, feeding forward, it really helps you to be able to deliver a different outcome at the end of next year. So my advice to you is to kind of try to stay out of the blame game. It's tempting to, think that, hey, my boss is clueless, they're being unfair, but instead try to say, okay, what part of this can I own, and show that you're resilient, show that you can step up to the challenge, and know that it's not the end of your story. Now, the other thing I'll leave you with here on the Friday afternoon is that don't let this impact your definition of your self-worth either. Right? Sometimes you have a difficult review. You can take it and just think about it, stew on it, and just be so disappointed that you begin to kind of define yourself as the person that didn't meet expectations. But hey, look at it as an opportunity and just determine that this next year, you're going to be the one to come forward and say, hey, here's some goals that I'd like to go get after. What do you think of these goals? Go get after them. Get alignment yourself with them. You be the one to come forward and say, hey, all right, I'm going to set aside my defensiveness and I'm going to be about moving forward and about making progress, okay? And if you do that, that can become the starting point of something new for you, a cadence that every year you can get out and you can be the one that's delivering results that are aligned, not just the ones that are misaligned, all right? So if you take that this week and go schedule that follow-up chat, those are the conversations that I recommend that you get after and that you be willing to do something with. All right, I'm confident in both of you. These two questions that we received today, the one on mentoring, the one on performance reviews. Hopefully you found something that you can take away and that you can apply yourself, or that you could teach to somebody else. If you heard something that you liked, go ahead and leave a comment in the comments below. The live stream will be available on recording for those of you that you'd like to go back and check it out. On LinkedIn and YouTube. We're also on Instagram today. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Hopefully you have a great week. Keep taking the steps that are going to compound one on another, and get out there, live your anthem, and let's go.